Hello and welcome to Talk Time. And this week we are taking a look at mining. All of a sudden, everybody is talking about galamsey. Is galamsey really the problem in mining? What about the small-scale legal miners? What about the multinational corporations? What is wrong in the mining sector? And we're going to be talking about mining this week with somebody who has been in the trenches for a very, very long time, trade unionist and activist in the mining community. Welcome to Talk Time.
It's a beautiful day. I'm gonna make most of it. It's a beautiful day, a day to share with you. You make my world go round. Yeah, yeah. It's really got me saying, nice girl. Brings home happiness.
Experience the wide range of top quality and affordable electronics, phones, tablets, home and office appliances from NASCO. NASCO, bring home happiness.
Well, hello, welcome back to Talk Time. And as I indicated from the very beginning, we are talking mining today. Everybody is talking about galamsey. We understand that there's even a media coalition against galamsey. Why is it that all of a sudden everybody is talking about mining? And what may the problems be? Is the problem just related to galamsey or illegal surface mining? Are there other problems and so on? And we are very privileged to have with us in the studio Madam Hannah Owusu Koranteng, trade unionist and activist in the mining community. Madam, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, why is it that all of a sudden everybody is talking mining?
Thank you again, and good evening to your listeners. I'm surprised myself because this discussion began some 20 years ago when we were working in Takwa, and we noticed the change in the mining sector from underground mining to surface mining. And this was the period when, going back a bit, during the Liman administration, there was this gold endowment fund established to attract foreign direct investments into the mining sector. And when he was overthrown, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings continued, and then as part of the economic recovery program, ownership of mining shifted from state to private when they were able to attract enough foreign direct investment. And there was also a shift in the operations of mining from underground to surface mining. And it also had to do with a shift in ideology, because Ghana operated the state mining companies, and it was employing a lot of people in underground mining. The surface was available for other land use purposes. So this shift to surface with the justification that it was cost effective to the exploiter, because then they were going to use chemicals, and they were going to strip the surface, and they were going to destroy our water bodies, they were going to destroy our topography, they were going to destroy everything, human dignity included, in the operations. So when this began, and we noticed that, we also mobilized some community people and thought that as people who had benefited from education, the cocoa farmers' scholarships, we needed to get people to be aware that this brand of mining is different from what people are used to the underground mining. And so we began mobilizing. In fact, our actions were detected by community concerns. Some 8 communities in the Wasa West district, the then Wasa West district, complained about their farms being destroyed without any due processes of negotiating or recognition that they are the owners of the farm. That was a period that chiefs in the Wasa area demonstrated in Ghana. The first time I saw chiefs demonstrating that their lands were being taken over and they didn't seem to understand what was happening. That was a period that, in my estimation, regulators were not really on top of the issues, because we thought that with surface mining, it required different tools for regulation, and it also required that we had well-stuffed, equipped laboratories for analysis and all that. But we just shifted from underground mining and dropped into surface mining. And I bet you, at that time, if you asked the average Ghanaian whether mining was not right, the answer you got was, as for mining, we've lived with mining. So the perception was that we're continuing with the underground mining and that the space available for other land use would still be available. So we were engulfed with something that we didn't really understand. And moving on, we recognize that we have not really done our due diligence as a state. Mm-hmm. And so what this whole talk about Galamsey today is not even qualified to merit the meaning of Galamsey, because if you're talking about Galamsey, it's not a process where you dig, destroy, and then extract gold, but then you picked from the soil or the surface whenever you got something. But this form of mining is quite devastating, and I think as a state we should bow down our heads in shame for allowing our natural resource to be depleted in this manner. And I don't think any serious partner would want to partner Ghana seeing us live in this environment and not getting worried. So yes, there's a lot of cry about Galamsey, but Galamsey is just an offspring of uncontrolled, unregulated surface mining.
You spoke about the ideological shift. What is this ideological shift?
Yes, it was an ideological shift because State Gold Mining Corporation was owned by Ghana. And I remember in those days, government allotted 5% of revenue generated from mining for the administrative activities of the sector. And so at least 90% went to government, and it was used for the development of the state. Now with surface mining came along the private multinational ownership of the sector. So yes, if the gold is beneath the earth crust, it's for Ghanaians, it's for the state. Mm-hmm. But once it's mined, we have very limited control over what the resource should be used for. So as we live today, whenever gold is extracted from the ground, it's boxed up and airlifted from the place of operations, and then it goes outside the country. So if you're talking about mining today, it has not developed any linkages with the economic activity of Ghana, and the ownership structure has also changed from state to private multinational. And even when Ghanaians are engaged in it, it's still the private nationals and individuals who are benefiting from the resource, and not the state per se. The role of the state has been reduced to rent seeking, and once companies pay their so-called taxes, then they are free to do whatever they wanted with the resource. Yeah, so that is it.
Do I understand you to be saying that surface mining, it's something that even the legal big companies also engage in?
Well, if you talk about surface mining, you can't really differentiate whether it's legal or illegal, the way it manifests. Because, for instance, the companies, the formalized multinational companies who are involved in surface mining still would use water sources within their concession. And I must say that it was the government that granted them the right to use the water. Because if you look at the Minerals and Mining Act, Section 17, it talks about they seeking permits from water resources and all the other regulators. And they have the power to convey, impound, divert, surface, groundwater, any form of water within their concession for mining operations. So we have given them that right to destroy our lives. And once they have that permit, they site their pits at the heads of water bodies. So for instance, you go to mining communities and popular water forms like Subika, Owusu are pits now. And these are water forms. And then beyond that, all the mining companies dam streams. So we have the Subri, we have Kwabrafo, and a number of streams in the country have been dammed for mining purposes. So you see, I think why people are crying today is because the color of water has changed. But then we have not bothered about the chemical content of water, the heavy metals that are laced with the waters that we drink. And we just are looking at the color and we are just wailing because the color has changed. But we have conducted a number of researches citing companies, multinational companies, operations, and other mining companies' operations. And in all, water forms in Takwa, at least in Takwa that we tested, were all polluted with heavy metals. Whether they were groundwater, spring water, water that had been provided by companies to communities because their water forms were polluted, or what, were all polluted with heavy metals. I mean arsenic, cadmium, lead, manganese, and all that. And so that is the operations of mining. Then the other thing that is causing the environmental hazard has to do with the dumping of rock waste. If you dig a pit, the size of this table, you need 3 times the size of the table to dump your rock waste. And so you dump it on fertile lands, agricultural lands. And once that happens, the problem that confronts us is that heavy metals that were embedded in the earth crust, very stable in the earth crust, are now exposed to the atmosphere. And they combine with oxygen and water, and then it triggers the acid formation. So you have the sulfuric acid and many dangerous compounds being leached out in perpetuity until the metal is exhausted. The leaching will continue, and so that would pollute the environment. And again, once you have that happening, apart from the land that has been occupied, the leaching is going to affect lands that are not occupied. So that is going to affect agricultural production. And all these things are happening with multinational mining companies, with small-scale licensed companies. And now we have this new brand of small and multinational companies. I don't know whether to term them the medium or what. The Chinese, the foreigners, the Europeans, the Americans, the Indians, the Burkinabes, all coming in. Why? Because Ghana opened its door too wide for mining with this gold endowment fund and then the subsequent policy directions that came after that. So the assumption is that if multinational mining companies who are supposed to be regulated are having a field day, they are displacing families, they are displacing communities. In fact, they are mining cemeteries, they are mining shrines. what prohibits people who have been displaced from going out there to also scout for something, for a livelihood? And so the problem has become very complicated as we speak today. And beyond that, when the small-scale miner acquires a license for exploratory work, for instance, because there's lack of supervision and monitoring, if he's supposed to dig this place, he goes about exploiting all over. And at the end of the day, yes, I'm still exploiting. And once you are in exploration, you don't really have to go through the rigorous environmental control measures. And so that becomes a backlog of environmental degradation. Now, apart from that, the government itself has been involved in illegalities. I'm saying this because if you look at mining in protected forests, where these forests are backed by legislature and are not supposed to be touched, you don't have the right even to pick a snail from such forests. Once you allow mining in such places, then it's telling everybody that Ghana, you go there, there's no control, so do whatever you want. Then the other problem has to do with how these people come into our country. They pass through the airports, the equipments are passing through harbors. Are people not seeing? Are we not having migration officers? How do they acquire work permits to end up in communities, remote communities, where even Ghanaians do not know? So yes, we have failed the nation as a state, and it's time we look and then see what we can do about that.
But if our laws, I mean the Mining Act, for example, allows them to impound water, to dam water, to divert water and so on, use water for their mining operations, underground, surface water and all, why are we complaining? Why don't we just change the law?
Exactly. And that has been the argument.
Why do we need coalition of media and so on when the law is just bad?
Exactly. You see, Wakam has been an advocate for law reviews. Not because we think Ghana, we don't have a whole ton of laws. But then, laws that protect citizens are lacking when it comes to mining. For instance, community people, families, individuals, stools, skins are the owners of land. Government is not the owner of the land. And what is provided for in the law, in the Minerals and Mining Act, in the Constitution, is that there could be compulsory acquisition of that land for development. And once mining has been classified as development, then mining automatically qualifies as a development venture, which I don't believe in though. And so for that reason, community lands are ceded for mining companies. And if you go through the Constitution, the companies have obligation to ensure that they negotiate one-on-one with the affected people and pay prompt, fair, adequate compensation, which will restore livelihoods, and goes on to talk about compensation regime of when people have to be displaced and all that, which is quite progressive. But then when it comes to the eminent domain, where the gold is vested in the states, and the president has been given the rights to look for investors to mine for our benefit, there's a conflict. I have my land I've acquired legally. What is underneath the land is for the states. So if you can mine without disturbing my land, then we don't have a problem. And the government and companies exploited this provision in our laws to the extent that because community people cannot read and write, may not understand the law, they went to communities with a paper and said, yes, your land is now my land, and so I have the right to mine. And in the process, at times no compensation was even paid, and whenever compensations were paid, they could not restore livelihoods. So for this reason, there was a whole campaign using NGOs in the sub-region and community people that are affected to develop what we now call the ECOWAS directives on the guiding principles and policies in the mining sector, including the oil and gas sector. And as part of the policy, because our laws, the Minerals and Mining Act 703, 2006, is not having provisions, clear provisions for human rights, the ECOWAS is having that. Because we do not have environmental control measures in the Act, the ECOWAS directive is having that. And because we recognize that community people are the owners of the land, there's this provision of free, prior, and informed consent. What basically it means is that if you go to a community for any investment option, you need to meet those that will be affected, not just the chief, not opinion leaders, but everybody that will be affected. And you need to inform them. Information meaning explain the extent to which your activity is going to destroy their lives, is going to improve their lives. Everything that they need to know about your activity that will be beneficial or have adverse effects on their lives, they need to know. And based on the information you provide them, they can say, yes, we are granting you the consent to mine or not to mine. Beyond that, if you even look at our environmental impact assessment provision, you table all the things that you want to do after your scoping, and then if through the process it's discovered that you are going to destroy our water body, you are going to destroy our cemetery, our shrine, and there's no option to change the plan, the technology to preserve that, we have the right to say no. But all these were not part of our laws. And so when the ECOWAS directive was passed, that before you go into even exploration, you need to seek the consent of community people. And government gazetted this. Then it became obvious that there was a gap in the Act, which should be aligned to the provisions in the directives. And the good thing is that now Ghana has a policy on mining, which is also aligned to the policy, the ECOWAS directive. So there is still a gap in the Act. And so our preoccupation has been that, yes, government, you have ratified many conventions, protocols, which seeks to protect citizens. If you have failed in protecting citizens, this is the opportunity to prove that, yes, you are a sovereign state and that your concern is to protect citizens. And so align the law to the policy. And so that's where we are, and it's not being done. But until that is done, until we trigger this polluter pays principle, where companies would absorb all their environmental costs, yes, we can stop the small flies down there from engaging in galamsey. But because mining is so profitable in the country, people will continue to do the wrong things. I'm saying it's profitable because if you look at contribution of mining to GDP, as we speak today, the latest report, which was published in 2016, that is the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative report, showed that the contribution of mining to GDP was 0.8%. So if you are even thinking in economic terms, it doesn't make economic sense to destroy all the things that we have just for people to suffer and then the state to lose everything and then have this backlog of legacy problems that we need to deal with after the companies fold up and leave us.
Well, viewers, we are talking to Madam Hannah Owusu Koranteng, Associate Executive Director of WACAM. She's been a long-standing activist in the mining communities and was also, or is, a trade unionist. We're talking about mining, its destructive effects, how we can overcome the problem, and so on. We're going to take a short break. Now, when we come back, I'd like to find out from her how to deal with this menace. We are told that task forces are being formed, combination of policemen and soldiers. Haven't we heard that before? Short break.
Bibiara wa melkom Luciano le melkom Nofiano ye melkom What are you looking for? Melkom got it all. Great discounts, no door. Yamafia so best bargains on our things. Everything here is a bargain. High quality, would be a priority. Tell your mom, tell Poppy, tell your actually everybody. Bibiara wa Malcolm.
Well, hello and welcome back to Talk Time. We are talking about mining. A lot of people like to talk about galamsey, but we are talking about mining and its impact on the national economy, on life in the mining communities and so on. And we are talking to Madam Hannah Owusu Koranteng, who is the Associate Executive Director of WACAM and a very distinguished activist who's been involved in the struggle against the destructive effects of mining for well over 20 years. Now, Madam, we are told that task forces are being formed. Soldiers and policemen may be put together to go to the mining communities. Is that the way to go?
No. That's also a challenge. I remember once I was in some meeting somewhere and they were discussing security. And everybody was talking about installations and it was to protect the West African gas pipeline. So I asked a simple question. Are you going to post the security people along the pipe from Nigeria through to my country and beyond? That is not just possible. And we are talking of a situation where the places that this type of mining is happening, you need the commitment of citizens to partner whoever is giving the political direction to execute the plans. And so we need people to come on board. And before people can come on board, they should understand why there's even the need to protect our environments. Yes, it's provided for in the Article 41K of the Constitution that it's the duty of every citizen to do that. But then have we developed the culture looking at politicians, looking at prominent people in society, looking at our past leaders, looking at the security agencies, looking at regulators, that we would not be betrayed along the line? So we need to begin talking. There are various facets of the problem. And I think that if we want lasting solution to the problem, then we should be able to distinguish what constitutes criminality from what is mere livelihood option, what are regulatory failures, what are state failures, what have been the unhealthy marriage between chiefs, district assemblies, and those destroying our lives. We need to know all this. And we need to also have a data of what these people down there can do. Because whether we like it or not, they constitute the labor force of the country. And so some of them are well trained to operate equipment. Some of them are graduates who do not have jobs, so they are there. Some of them are trained graduates, teachers with no jobs. Some of them will not do anything but galamsey. Mm-hmm. And some of them are just trying.
You mean there are university graduates involved in galamsey?
Oh yes, if you go down to the pits, to the stopes, you'll be shocked the level of the intellectual capacity of some of them in that place. So they are just not dropouts working there. Some of them are highly trained and they need to be placed in society. But then we need also to know that some people are just using galamsey to turn over their bad money into good money. And we should target and deal with. Others are in the country just to make sure that their comfort is paramount to everybody's interests. We should target them and deal with them. When we are placed in positions of trust, from the presidency to the laborer who is supposed to regulate, once we provide you with your logistics to work, we expect that you do exactly what you are supposed to do. Beyond that, if we have this conversation and then we do our cost-benefit analysis to even know whether we want to continue mining or not, and we are convinced we want to continue mining, then we'll require the political will, which seems to be propping up. We'll require the political direction. We'll also require that when the security people go there and community people complain that the equipment that were seized were sold, or they seized their concentrates, that's what they call it, their concentrates, and we do not have account of where the concentrate went, we should investigate all these things. When we recognize that, yes, the leading political party, the opposition party, key figures in the political realm are part of the problem, we should not hesitate at all to name and shame them and imprison them as example for people to move away from such vices. But then beyond that, once we are able to disaggregate, we can have a labor workforce. The equipment that are being used, they are the same equipment that we use for road construction. So you don't seize them and burn them. But then you can deploy them or employ them to be part of the contractors working at least on feeder roads. And that creates job opportunities. So you ease the system of people who are trained and are capable of doing something with their lives. And then you identify those that are criminals, and then you deal with them according to their crime. But don't let us forget that in all these discussion, we should have the human face to it, because you can talk about installation, human security is still key.
Yeah, now we are being told about the problem, you know, the degradation of the environment and so on. Are we getting anything substantial from mining? I mean, the state. Are we getting anything worthy of the degradation, the pollution, the poisoning? Is there something to compensate for all of this?
What I know for a fact is that mining contribution to GDP is 0.8%. And that's Government of Ghana's report, 2014, the Ministry of Finance. What I also know, and if I talk about GDP, yes, it's all payments. Yeah, so now we can talk about employment and all that. Cumulatively, that is what we are earning.
0.8%.
Yeah, 0.8%. Beyond that, companies are externalizing their operational costs to society. I've talked about the environmental costs, the water pollution costs. But beyond that, if you look at the fiscal regime, we have very promotional regime, which attracted them in the first place. So for instance, all equipment that are brought in for mining purposes will not attract some taxes. So what it means is that when they are taking delivery of them from the harbour, governments will still pay workers to take delivery of the equipment, and that translates into subsidy from government. Again, if you look at the amounts that companies are paying for the use of water and what we are paying for using water, then we are paying more. So there are many subsidies. The other major subsidy has to do with the low payment of compensation, which is making a lot of farmers worse off in mining communities. In fact, I remember Professor Aite did some research in 2004. It was published in 2004, and that was when the Wasa West district had 8 multinational mining companies operating in the district, holding about 70% of the land as concession. And he analyzed the per capita of Western region. It was the highest, or one of the highest. And then when he moved down to the Wasa West district, it equaled that of the 3 northern regions and central region. And I'm talking about a district that was housing 8 multinational mining company. So the economy of that district was very weak. Why? Because you displaced farmers, and some assessment made by the district assembly indicated that the farmer population of Wasa West then was 41%, when the national average was more than 60%. And I did some work in Tibrebe, where we had 2 multinational mining companies, and the farmer population was 21%. So it meant many people were not working. And so that is also contributing to that. And then the compensation. For instance, if you take one cocoa tree, per the laws of the country and the constitution, you have to pay compensation per tree at the prevailing market rate, and then extrapolate that to cover the number of years that you expect yields. And the economic life of cocoa is about 40-50 years. So if my farm is 10 years, it means I'm still within my economic life, and my farm is destroyed. What it means is that you extrapolate the yield per tree, which is about a quarter to half back, and that translates into between 120 to 200 Ghana cedis. So let's pick just 100 cedis as the yield per year, times the number of years that I'm expected to get some income from the tree. So a cocoa tree should not go for less than 4,000 Ghana cedis. How much are companies paying? Some are paying 1 cedi, others are paying 2 cedis. Those that are saying they are the cream of the industry are paying less than 20 cedis as one-off payments.
Per tree?
Yes, per tree. So it's perpetuating the poverty of rural communities. And you know, in our environment, the river is not just for bathing and drinking, but then we derive our protein source and income from rivers. When you go to communities, the forest is the source of income for women. So once these are gone, you have the backlog of unemployed, not because they don't want to work, but because their means of employment has been taken away from them. And once we start ingesting the polluted, now you know that the toxicants have permeated into the food chain. So we're eating bad food, we are drinking polluted water, we are breathing bad air, and definitely that will have effect on our health. And we did some research in Takwa, and we did a similar one in Ahafo, Newmont. And the results indicate that every adult in Takwa who has attained the age of 70 and lived in that environment, 8 out of every 100 adults is prone to cancer. Ahafo is new, So
8%.
8% of the population of people who have lived there consistently for about 70 years, they are prone to cancers. And this means that higher medical bills. Forget about the malaria, the incidence of malaria. Yes, we have lived with malaria for many years, but once you have surface mining and stagnant waters and all that, you increase the incidence of malaria. And if you go through all the medical facilities in mining communities, you see the graph growing. Think about the sexually transmitted diseases. Think about the respiratory tract infections. So apart from getting the 0.8 contribution to GDP, we are also incurring a lot of debts. That has been the cost of production transferred to society. So externalization of environmental, social, economic costs to society would erode the 0.8%, and on net basis, we will have to find money to clean the mess. So that's why I'm saying that it's time we do a real debate as a state, as people who are owners of the resource, and see whether we have ever made profit from mining. And if we have, where did we use the money? Where did the money go? But then I believe that once we do the analysis, we'll have negative returns from mining investments.
Well, recently, El Salvador completely banned all mining activities. In fact, the mining of all metals.
Yes.
And the decision was taken by the Parliament of El Salvador, unanimous decision.
Yes.
Is it possible for us to take such a decision in Ghana? Would it be useful?
Let's talk. And Colombia has also banned Anglo Gold, a community that they were working in. They did their own referendum, and about 6,000 plus said no. About 70 people said yes to mining. And so because of that, government was forced to ban Anglo Gold from Colombia. You see, at times people talk about resource nationalism. If we engage in global activities, we should have a level play field. We shouldn't have this master-servant relationship, where if you are from a producing country, it seems you don't have rights at all. And gradually, if government is serious, and if institutions like NCCE and all those, the media, NGOs, we champion the free, prior, and informed consent. Nobody is going to drive any company away. If we really go through the Act 703, Section 72, 73, 74, which deals with negotiation, as I've explained now, nobody would ask companies to leave. They will have to leave, because everybody knows that they have gold in their countries. Why are they coming here? It's because we open our door too wide and not regulating them. So a time is coming, if companies refuse to listen and then abide by the rules of the game, engaging in responsible mining, they will have to pack and leave. And I know it won't be long, because how can Ghana live in this environment and think we are civilized? We can't live in the environment and believe that we are still civilized. We need to change what we have created. Otherwise, I don't see Ghana going through the next 20 years and there's havoc. Either we fight or we do it right. And so the options are there. Government has a responsibility to ensure that, yes, they mobilize all of us to engage in the fight. And once we are engaged in the fight, the companies would have the obligation to do it right. If they want to stay with us, nobody is saying they should go, but then they should play the game according to the rules, and then we'll all live happily.
There has been some talk about biodiversity and how mining has destroyed biodiversity. What is this thing called biodiversity, and how has it been destroyed?
You see, if you engage in ecological studies, you know that human beings, animals, plants, stones, everybody has its or his or her habitat, which is unique to that organism. And we have various species of plants and animal forms. And so collectively, that forms the food chain. In fact, that determines our existence. So the more we destroy biodiversity, the more we destroy our lives. And the research has it that already what God created, more than 90% is lost already. So what we have today, some of them are of conservation concerns. It means that if we are not careful and we do not protect them, they are going to get extinct. So biodiversity is the harmonious living of plants, animals, non-living organisms with minerals and all that. But then we all have to obey the laws of nature so that one will not take advantage of the other. And so in that sense, human beings are part of the whole biodiversity scheme. But human activities constantly destroy the rich biodiversity of society. And as we speak today, if you look at Newmont's Achim mine, they did their own assessments of the Ejinuabipo Forest Reserves and then the Maimai River Forest Reserves. These are globally significant biodiversity sites. And they listed in Ejinuabipo Forest Reserves more than 700 species, excluding the invertebrates in water bodies and all that. 27 of them were of conservation concerns, 10 were new to science. Again, in the Mama River Forest Reserves, they discovered 7 species new to science. Now, government has granted them the license to mine Ejinuabipo Forest Reserves. So what it means is that the whole world may lose these species that are new to science. They are found only in that forest reserves. So biodiversity plays a major role in how water systems are formed, how soil systems are formed, how habitats are developed, and the uniqueness of habitats, such that once organisms are dislocated from their known habitat, they may get extinct, or they suffer, or they change into forms that are not useful to nature.
Well, viewers, this is Talk Time, and we are talking mining. And we are privileged to be talking to Madam Hannah Owusu Koranteng, who is the Associate Executive Director of WACAM, and she's been an activist in the field for many, many, many years.
For 40 years now.
For 40 years! My goodness, 40 years. Now we're going to go on a short break, and when we come back, I'd like to probe further. I'd like to find out what we can concretely do to restore what we are destroying, the forests, the plants, and so on. Is it possible to restore our environment? Is it just possible to restore the environment? Short break.
How much is this?
600.
Wonderful. I think I'll take this one.
But what's your size?
44.
This is 43. I can tell you 44. Okay. This is the man, your home of quality shoes from the UK. We have various shoes for the office, for your formal and casual occasions. Visit the man in Abilingpe. Our office is located just behind Aquatech. Our telephone numbers are 020-873-7166. You can also reach us on our landline 0302 730-760. We'll be expecting you.
Hello, welcome back to Talk Time. We're talking about mining and its impact on the national life. And we're talking to Madam Hannah Owusu Koranteng, Associate Executive Director of WACAM. Now, sometimes I'm tempted to call you comrade.
No, well, that's okay.
But is it possible to restore our environment? We are destroying the plants, we are destroying the water, we are destroying everything. Can we restore the environment?
Okay. You see, nature itself has corrective measures of restoring life and other forms. But it does so only when the destruction is within the scope of nature. And that's why I was saying that human activity is the destruction of the earth. So nature can do that. Because the world recognizes that exploiters and many businesses do not factor in environmental concerns. Now there are quite a number of protocols which deals with you incorporating your environmental costs as part of your operational costs. So once that is done, what we call the polluter pays principle. If you pollute, you have a responsibility to clean your mess, because you don't pollute and externalize the cost to society. So that option is there. Then if we have proper land use plans, and then we do proper allotment to the various sectors, and make sure that we do not engage in one activity to the detriment of nature, we can still manage that. As we speak today, people are talking about global warming. People are talking about posting carbon bonds, developing carbon banks and all that. It's because society recognizes that the rate at which we are destroying, especially vegetative material, will not address the problem of purifying the air. And so we go into specific direct interventions of ensuring that even as we are destroying parts of society, we preserve some to address the imbalances of nature. And so greening the environment is one key factor to do that. But in the case of mining, we are talking about destruction of soil structure, texture, topography, and all that. Destruction of water bodies. And it takes huge resources to address that. And that's why I would want to opt for the polluter pays principle. That will minimize the extent to which companies would want to expand and then destroy nature. It's only because they know that they can carry the cost over to other people that they engage in that. But then the other argument around when it comes to mining is that companies should post bonds. That has not addressed the problems anyway. And in fact, in the United States, the government had to subsidize the bonds that were posted before they could clean the environment. And we are talking about billions of dollars over here. So if it comes to a poor state like Ghana, where we are not reaping much from mining, and we are allowing externalization of costs, and we are not regulating, a time will come when the pollution will be such that yes, the land will be there, but it cannot be habited. And so to avert that, we need to, as a first step, place a moratorium on issuing of new licenses to both large scale, small scale, whatever scale mining in the country. And then the second thing, we do our cost benefit analysis. Once we do that, we engage in the dialogue. And if we are convinced, as a people that yes, we want to continue like this, then we continue. But we need to put in place mechanisms to restore the environment. Otherwise, we may not survive.
We are told that mining is encroaching on forest reserves.
Yes.
How true is that? Is it a sensible thing to do, to cut your forest in order to find gold?
Well, mining is happening in productive forests of reserves, under buildings everywhere, in rivers, in cemeteries, shrines, name them, everywhere. And if you ask me whether it's a sensible option, no, it's not. You see, it's all because of this assumption that if you have this bottle from your investment, it's profits. Because we have not really disaggregated what went into the production of this, we assume that whenever we get some money, it's profits. But the 0.8% that we are realizing from mining as contribution to GDP would have to address the environmental problems. And now, as we speak, very conservative environmental costs from mining, industry, agriculture is over 10%.
Of GDP.
Of GDP. So it doesn't make economic sense to destroy what you have. And one thing is that UNTAD did some research in 2003 as the base year, published 2005. Wildlife and Forestry Commission did something else. When gold gave us $46.7 million, bushmeat sale gave us $200 to $300 million. So it doesn't even make economic sense. And that's just one parameter from the forests. And so over the years, the returns, the rents that we are receiving from gold cannot address the environmental costs. So we need to talk. We need to do the assessment. So that's what it is. It's not sensible, and people are not listening. Yeah.
Madam, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Well, viewers, we've been talking to Madam Hannah Owusu Koranteng, who is the Associate Executive Director of WACAM, and she's been involved in mining activism for well over 40 years. I do hope that all of us have managed to pick a thing or two, and all of us can and will be willing to participate in this struggle to save the environment. The best comes to you from Pan-African Television, best in current affairs, best, of course, in entertainment, and best in discussions of this nature. Please stay with Pan-African Television until we meet again. It's goodbye from all of us, from the cameramen, from the production team, from the editors, from the makeup people, and from everybody. See you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.